Hi, welcome to Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, coming to you from Pioneer Plaza at downtown Honolulu. I'm Hong Jiang, your host, and I'm Associate Professor of Geography at UH Manoa. And my very special guest today is Mr. David Day, a leading international business lawyer, and a special topic today is NSA spying, breaking international business. Those of you who are familiar with ThinkTech shows, David is a long-term host of Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, and he is a Thursday host. My mentor in hosting by practice. And David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, and it's great to be on the relaxed side of the table where all I have to do is wait for you to ask me a question. But no, I'm glad to be here, and this is a fabulous topic.
It's definitely a topic that's revelation to me, and so just give you the viewers some background. The NSA, which is a national security agency, has been casting a global surveillance net that is so large that threatens to basically end or severely limit the ability of international businesses and lawyers to use digital communication tools like Skype and phone and email, everything we basically rely on today in communication. So today's discussion, David, you're going to help us understand the NSA practices and its implications.
Well, and I hope I can do that. For the benefit of those of you who are in the audience, I'm sure that you know that this gentleman, Edward Snowden, was a NSA consultant. He worked for Booz Allen right here in Honolulu, and he departed for Hong Kong and then ended up, thanks to Vladimir Putin, with asylum in Russia. There was a disclosure of a huge trove of NSA documents. And previously, Snowden worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, and this disclosure has exploded in a lot of different directions, Hong. And I think that your opening introduction to this show here probably threw some people who are watching for a loop, because they were saying, now wait a minute, is this something new? And actually, what you were talking about at the beginning of the show is very new. This just occurred in the last few days, and it's something that I think that we need to really dig into here, because it has some enormous ramifications for lawyers as well as for international business.
Let's backtrack a little bit. This is a NSA, National Security Agency, and they do have legitimate businesses in terms of things related to national security. That's as the name suggests. But then they are doing a lot more beyond their job mandate, so to speak. So how do you draw the line?
Well, here's I'm not so sure. The problem is that before Edward Snowden started to release these documents, or when it first occurred, I thought we knew where the line was. I mean, I'm kind of like, in some respects, having to do with the intelligence community, kind of like the average guy in the street. And I think the average guy in the street believed and said, okay, the NSA is probably monitoring the phone calls of terrorists. That's what they should be doing. That's part of their mission.
Especially after 9/11, we
Sure.
hear a lot about that, the Patriot Act.
And absolutely. And so that series of, if I could call them little nets after various terrorists, and then maybe they had linkages back into the U.S., so there was an American citizen or contact involved. And I think that before the Snowden revelation, it was understood that those little nets were being followed, and that there were protections or safeguards in place to protect American citizens from having their privacy invaded. So that was before Mr. Snowden left for Hong Kong. And once the revelation started to come out, then what we discovered is a whole different ballgame. And what we discovered was the NSA was collecting all this metadata, that's what it's called, the phone records of virtually every phone call made in the US, along with other electronic communications, and had the ability to listen in on the phone calls if they needed to, open up the emails, read the emails, and so forth and so on. And so what happened is that when Snowden, this was first released, initially he was thought of as I heard, spy, traitor, and in fact, in June of 2013, an indictment was brought against him as a traitor to the United States. But what's happened as the extent of this spying has been revealed, all of a sudden the Fourth Amendment protection for privacy has risen its head, so to speak, and the public opinion is shifting, and many people in Congress upset and media upset that there's more than just a spying national security issue here. There is one of privacy of the individual.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's where the line is. It's a very, very difficult debate that's just getting underway in our country.
Coming back to Snowden, and he could still be a spy, he could still be a traitor, but the kind of information he revealed, is it seen as believable?
Oh yes,
Okay.
It is believable. And so the question is he a spy or a traitor, or is he a patriot and a whistleblower?
And when you say the media and the government officials are they upset about Snowden disclosing the information, or are they upset that NSA is kind of surveilling, spying on more things than they should?
The government and initially the media were upset with Snowden as a spy, as a traitor. And what's transpired since then is, of course, the government maintains the same position, spy, traitor.
That's right, yeah.
But the media and public opinion are shifting now more and more to see him as a whistleblower, as a patriot, and laying out a type of conduct that is frightening and abhorrent to the free society that we live in. And just as an example, think of it this way. June of 2013, Hong, what happened is that the Justice Department files a criminal indictment against Snowden. And just, I guess it was right before Christmas, I find out that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee has nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Apparently, so very different image.
Which is it?
That's right. Yeah. Tell us just a little bit more about the kind of information that NSA is collecting.
Well, I don't pretend to know all the details of the kinds of information.
But some of the things related to what you do, in terms of business, in terms of communications involving lawyers.
Well, I've always been concerned about, as a lawyer, the critical importance of maintaining the confidentiality of my communication with clients. And so whether I'm communicating overseas or not, or I'm face-to-face in a foreign country, I always worry about this. But until this event that involved the American law firm of Mayer Brown and the Indonesian government surfaced just a few days ago, I had never really focused on the fact that my own government might have me as a lawyer swooped up in the dragnet of communications with foreign clients. And that fact came alive in the last few days, and it's very shocking.
Tell us in more detail about this particular news of spying involving the Indonesian government and lawyers.
Well, what happened was that the NSA in the United States, the National Security Agency, is connected with what are called the Five Eyes. Five Eyes.
Yeah.
And those are the intelligence communities in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. Also the US, the 5 countries. And so the NSA has its surveillance net looking for issues involving national security, thrown all over the domestic communications in the U.S., and they're looking for communications, with terrorists or potential terrorists abroad, as do all of those other 5 countries. So one of the 5 Eyes, Australia,
Yeah.
swooped up in its net the confidential communications between the lawyer, which is the law firm of Mayer Brown in Chicago, and their client, which was the Indonesian Ministry of Trade. And those communications were in connection with a legal representation by the law firm of Mayer Brown of the Indonesian government in a trade dispute with the U.S. government. And so the fact that the lawyers' communications got swooped up in this whole process raises a whole host of new questions and problems. Long answer to a short question.
So this is important because now you suddenly see the kind of business communication that you have been conducting may have been part of the surveillance net.
Oh, absolutely. And it's saying to me, hey, lawyers, you're going to have to think long and hard about how you were communicating with your clients, because of the possibility that the attorney-client privilege is breached or broken by the surveillance of not just our government in the U.S., but one of the other 5 Eyes connected to the NSA, just like the law firm of Mayer Brown was out of Chicago.
Was it because in this particular case, the communication had to do with the Indonesian government and the U.S. government? Was it particular government-related kind of business transactions that's more monitored, or it could be any?
Well, in this particular case, arguably it's a government-related communication. But remember, this is the American law firm is trying to represent in a dispute with the U.S. government trade matters that involve the Indonesian government. And so the Australians are spying on the Indonesians. They come across this and they pitch this information to the NSA. Now, there are supposed to be protections within the NSA for attorney-client privilege, but this type of, it's one step away from industrial espionage.
That's right, yeah.
It's one step away. It's not the same, but it's very troubling.
And now, since you know these things are happening, what would be stopping the NSA from expanding these kind of practice to all other kind of business transactions? That's probably part of the concern here, right?
It is, and I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that a law firm's confidential communications with its client in Indonesia were swooped up in the Australian dragnet and then pitched to the NSA, and the impact of this disclosure changes some things for lawyers, I believe, and it impacts the very precious attorney-client privilege that we value so much here in the U.S. And that's something that we should talk about.
Yeah, so I understand there were some earlier concern from lawyers about the American Patriots Act infringe upon their relationship with our clients, and let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get to that part of the story. Okay. This is Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, and we'll be talking about NSA spying breaking international business. We will be right back after this short break.
Castle & Cook Hawaii, investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state. Collateral Analytics, empowering the real estate industry to make better informed property investment decisions. The Foreign Trade Zone, bringing the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone programs to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. Galen Ho, a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island. The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, incorporating diverse perspectives to design a flexible and forward-looking energy strategy. Hawaii Energy, the state's energy and efficiency program created to help Hawaii's residents and businesses adopt a clean energy lifestyle. Hawaii Gas, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future. Hawaii Pacific Health, bringing technology and teamwork together to transform healthcare in Hawaii. The High Tech Development Corporation, attached to DBED, is the state's leading technology agency. The Scheidler Family Foundation, supporting educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hello, we're back. We're live, coming to you from downtown Honolulu. This is Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, and we've been speaking with David Day, an international business lawyer, about NSA spying, breaking international business. So before the break, we talk about the legal community being concerned as far back as 2008 about this rights with the clients are kind of violated. Can you tell us a little bit more about that particular?
Well, the Patriot Act was modified in 2008. And what happened recently was there was a lawsuit that was brought up through the courts up to the Supreme Court. And as a part of that lawsuit, there were a group of lawyers that were saying, hey, you know, this NSA monitoring stuff, this has the potential for monitoring my relationships with my clients. And that's a violation of the attorney-client privilege. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court threw that case out on a very close decision. It was 5-4. And they threw it out, Hong, based upon the fact that at that time, the argument being made by those lawyers was, in the words of the Supreme Court, speculative. Means that it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But as a result of events that have occurred in the last few days here, the actual fact has indeed occurred. And so I think the result might be different, I don't know, but it might be different if the case involving Mayor Brown and the Indonesian Ministry of Trade were brought up again to the Supreme Court, because now we have a real live situation.
That's right, yeah.
And in 2000, a few years ago, the American Bar Association, I think it was 2012, proposed a rule or made a new rule change. And what they said was that lawyers now have to make, quote, reasonable efforts to protect the confidentiality of their information with clients from outsiders. Well, the question then becomes, what are reasonable efforts? What does that mean?
Now it's very interesting, because if NSA is spying on things that any form of digital or electronic communication, what do you do now? What is reasonable?
Well, there's two pieces to that. One is that the NSA domestically within the U.S. is, as I understand it, with their metadata collection, they're picking up the phone records of all domestic phone calls in the U.S., including, as a lawyer, my business calls, whether they're made by mobile phone or by landline. So that's on the U.S. end. So they potentially could be picking up communications from any of my clients. Now, there's supposed to be attorney-client privilege and protection and can't be used in a lawsuit, so forth. But it still raises a question of what the reasonable protection, what am I supposed to do? And then with respect to the work that I do with foreign clients, well, that's even more dangerous now, because how do I communicate with them? What's reasonable? Does that mean no more email?
Okay.
No more phone calls? Cannot use Skype or any of these digital communications?
I'll develop a set of code words.
A set of code words. I mean, in some sense, what we've seen over the last couple of decades is this steady march of technology and communications that made international business. It was like oiling the gears because people
that's
could
right.
communicate
Oh, yeah.
easily. You know, they follow up by Skype and so
I
forth.
suppose this is part of globalization
Oh, yeah,
that's making
sure.
everybody's life supposedly better. But now they're so
Well, it's like Thomas
complicated.
Friedman's "The World Is Flat."
That's right, yeah.
And so that's we have that one trend, and then this most recent development is a braking or if you will, a retarding, slows it down, retarding influence on business. Why? Because what do we do on the foreign side? You see, Mayor Brown's phone records are probably sitting in the NSA servers already.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that the Australian intelligence community picked it up from the Indonesian Ministry of Trade side and then pitched it to the US government.
They
And
were
so-
going to pitch, meaning sell the information? Or
Gave it to.
Oh, just give it to them. I
right.
guess they were partners.
They're-
Right?
yeah, sure, that's what the Five Eyes, they're all
That's right.
coordinating these intelligence groups
Yeah,
from
yeah.
those 5 countries.
By the way, how did this come out?
What do you mean, how did it come out?
How did this whole information come out? Like become known that the information was collected by the Australian government and given pitch to. This is all part of the Snowden
It's
revelation.
part of the Snowden revelation.
I see. Got it.
And so it is just one more in the list
I see.
That,
Okay.
that was suddenly noticed. And so it means that the lawyer's communication could be picked up on the US domestic side. And for those lawyers like me who do international business, it could be picked up on the foreign side. And so then we come back to this ABA, American Bar Association rule.
Yeah.
What are reasonable efforts? What does that mean? And I started to talk about the trend of communication.
So what do you do? How do you communicate
Well,
now?
wait a minute. The trend of communication with using the 3D Cisco systems,
That's
we can
right,
talk about
yeah,
that later.
yeah.
Well, maybe it's so slowed down that we have to go back to the time of the American Revolution and do written documents
Okay.
that are hand delivered
Hand deliver letters. And,
or face-to-face meetings.
okay.
And so that's why it's potentially a very serious break, slowing down of international business.
That's
That's
right.
what that's the significance of this disclosure. Very, very important.
I wonder if the business community and also the legal community, when they start to recognize the potential threat here, how they're going to react. This is interesting. The news you just talked about
Well, I
is
hope
coming,
there's a
just
lot
coming
of
out.
discussion and debate about this because, maybe later in the program we can explore some of the ramifications of this because
yeah,
it's
definitely.
very, very serious and very troublesome because, we've got to worry about, private companies have to worry about private industrial espionage. And so that's one area of concern. But the other area of concern is, what about the espionage that is obtained by a government and then passed off to a competitor? And see, in this situation involving Mayor Brown and the Indonesian government, what's happening is that the information potentially could have been passed from the Indonesian Ministry of Trade to whatever federal agency was negotiating with them. I don't know that that actually happened, but the potential
is there. Yeah.
So it's like you have these two government entities, they're negotiating with each other for a business or a trade deal,
Yeah.
and one of them is spying on the other to gain advantage. Has nothing to do with national security.
That's interesting. This reminds me of something that the Chinese government has been doing, especially when you talk about industrial espionage. The Chinese government has been notorious in terms of spying all over the place,
absolutely.
including the U.S. And now with this new revelation, that's not this. Given the Chinese government kind of more so-called reason to, well, we're going to continue our practice because you're doing this
Sure.
to us, to everybody else as well. So this is really not a good image of the U.S. being, of freedom, protection, and
absolutely.
privacy is protected.
I think
It's a bad image for U.S. government.
very damaging. And here's the part that's really scary, is that I know from my own experience, and you may know something about this as well, and in both my own experience in China and Vietnam, is that in those countries, we always worry about the private firm, private company, subcontracting out effectively its industrial espionage to an arm of the government.
That's
In other
right,
words, have
yeah.
the government do the dirty work and then
Yeah.
report back
That's right, yeah.
to gain some type of advantage. And this situation involving Mayor Brown and the Indonesian government, it's not exactly that, but it's very close.
Everybody's learning from China, from the Chinese government, so to
Unfortunately, I
speak.
think you're probably right.
Here's the thing. So, look like there could be potentially huge amount of data collected. What would the NSA do with this huge mountains of data?
Well, in the past, the concept of finding a needle in the haystack had been very difficult for them to manage enormous amounts of data. But what's happened with the advance in computer technology and software technology is that the high-speed computers have got the ability to plow through this enormous mountain of data really fast and find the particular connections or hookups or relationships that they're looking for. And so technology has allowed them to do things that they couldn't do before. And the debate that needs to be had within our society is that what we really want them to do? And are they? Is there actually examples of national security where it's actually worked? Is it worthwhile? And that's the debate that I think is just really beginning in this country.
And do we know particular cases of NSA collecting these data and certain businesses are affected in a negative way? Do we have these cases now, or is it mostly the potential fear?
I think at the moment, so far as I know, I'm not aware of the business damage in a specific case.
Okay.
Other than this Indonesian one that we're just talking about.
That's right, yeah.
But what we are really concerned about, and to use your words, is the potential fear. I think.
The risk of...
The risk, the capability, and it comes back.
Yeah.
What are the reasonable efforts that a lawyer now has to make?
That's right, yeah.
Does it mean, for instance, that no more email communications?
Yeah.
Or does it mean got to use email, can use email, but if you use a server outside the United States, is that a reasonable effort, or does that make it worse? Does it help if it's in Switzerland or not?
You'll fly more.
Or maybe the airlines are the true beneficiaries of this whole thing.
But what's interesting from what I learned, that even like when two people sit down face to face to talk, if they are carrying a cell phone that is not turned totally off, meaning battery out, then that cell phone can be used. In my knowledge of the Chinese government case, the Chinese government can use your cell phone as a listening device to turn it on remotely. So meaning like you have face-to-face meeting, but technology is getting to such an extent that you have to throw away all your phones in the meeting space, so that your phone is not with you.
That is a scary thought.
It is.
So it would mean that a standard procedure in a business meeting might mean that the cell phones have to be put on the table and the batteries next to them.
Batteries out.
Next to them. That's like a common protocol in the future, which is a long ways from where we are now.
Definitely. And well, these would be cases when the government has selected these particular people to spy on. They have that kind of technology. I was appalled to hear technology like that existed. Apparently it does, and it could be used to very, very damaging results and the procedures.
That's right. And there are protections in theory that the NSA has through what are called the FISA courts. But remember that the FISA courts are judges that are appointed, and they are secret courts, so the proceedings are kept away from the public, and there's only one lawyer. That's the lawyer that represents the NSA, the Office of General Counsel. So you don't have a lawyer representing the people on the other side or the business on the other side. And so, the protections, they say are there, but they're very questionable now, given the extent of the disclosures of Edward Snowden.
Interesting. And I suppose a lot of this explosion of this casting of the surveillance net started or came about after 9/11, after the Patriots Act?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
And so you have the broadened legal authority given to the NSA after 9/11
Yeah.
with the Patriot Act, and then combine that with the explosion of computer and software capability to mine data, to look through it, to decrypt emails.
Yeah.
So I don't, today I don't even know if it's possible for me to communicate with you in an encrypted fashion that actually is rock solid.
Definitely, the risk of technology is really a serious issue, not just for the business and legal community, it's for everybody. Even if people who are not thinking that they might be spied on by the NSA, but the data is out somewhere. Somebody can get hold of it. So that's
right.
interesting. And one other question I wanted to bring up before the next break is the Patriot Act was under Bush, and there were a lot of criticisms. Wouldn't you think after Obama the NSA practice will be different, will be curbed?
You would have thought so, but in fact, it's kind of like the drone situation. There was a lot of criticism of the Bush administration using drones in Afghanistan and other parts of the Middle East. But what happened when there was a change of administration? You had a change of party in control, and there was, in fact, an acceleration of technology, one, and an acceleration of the push to use the technology. So there's two parts to it. So you get the ability to do more, and a desire to push it further. And so, contrary to what you think might have happened, it went exactly the other way.
Wow, it's definitely not a good trend.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a short break. This is Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, and we've been speaking about NSA spying, breaking international businesses. And we'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back. We're live, coming to you from downtown Honolulu. This is Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll be speaking with Mr. David Day on NSA spying, breaking international business. So the trend is not good in terms of this enlarged net of NSA surveillance. And although there isn't a particular case of damage, but there are a lot of concerns. So what are the ramifications for, let's say, U.S. business?
Well, let me just back up just a second here and point out to the audience that this specific disclosure involving the Indonesian Ministry of Trade and the law firm Mayer Brown in Chicago offers us, coming out of the Snowden disclosure, offers us a rare glimpse of a situation where an American law firm is swooped up in the surveillance of the Indonesian government by the Australian it's called the Australian Signals Directorate, which is kind of like their equivalent of their NSA. And because of the Five Eyes connection, Australia connected to the NSA as one of those US plus 4 countries. What happened was that the Snowden disclosure shows that the Australians informed the US that they had the communications between the Indonesian, not just phone numbers now, the actual communications between the Indonesian officials and the American law firm. So they've got the this is an attorney-client communication now.
Oh, wow.
They've got the confidential communication. Now, how it was ultimately used, we don't know that piece of the story yet.
Okay.
But the ramifications of this disclosure are horrendous for lawyers and for business. And so your question was, what does it mean? Where are we going with this?
That's right.
And so the first ramification is clearly what's happening as the global community is reading about this and is learning about it and is digesting this particular case, is that there's going to be a loss of trust in American lawyers and American law firms. So this affects American lawyers working all over the globe, because companies and governments, I mean, in my career, I've represented the governments of Haiti, I've represented the governments of Haiti, actually the government of Iran, a long time ago, during the days of right after the Shah fell.
You will be on the list now.
I would be on the list. Government of Iran and certainly the Japanese government.
Oh, wow.
And so, also the Philippine government. And so, clearly, that is something that is going to cause a loss of trust and confidence in American lawyers and American law firms. Wow. So that's a huge hit for the legal community that just a few days ago nobody knew about. And but aside from law firms, then there's damage to the whole digital industry.
Yeah, that's right.
Because on one side of the digital community, we have those like Google, like Apple, like Facebook, that are trying to distance themselves from the NSA, but pretty clear that they were involved either actively, or they provided back doors for the NSA to get information, or they were co-opted in some fashion. So we've got that group that is what you and I would call partnering with the NSA. Now they're coming to regret that, I think. And then we've got the other digital side. Let's take Skype as an example.
Yeah.
They're going to be hurt by this, because based on this, I'm not so sure if I can use Skype anymore with foreign clients. Or mobile phones.
Oh, even those companies that kind of, you indicate they were kind of co-opted with the government and by the government. They were part of this surveillance, because it's a technological tool there.
And to be fair, some of them may have been forced by the government for national security reasons.
Do we know which companies actually were participating in this surveillance?
We know some of them. We take out your list of phone companies in the U.S.
Okay.
So Hawaiian Tel would be one of them.
Yeah.
AT&T is another.
Okay.
Then we know about Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and there are many, many more.
Okay.
And
So
then
Cisco was
Cisco
clearly one of them. I
Cisco
know
was one of them.
They was assisting the Chinese government in very early years in surveillance.
Okay, and then we have just an amazing case of Dell computers, where what has been disclosed by the Snowden documents is that the hardware that Dell was manufacturing was intercepted by an NSA CIA operation, and the hardware modified before the computer ultimately was received by the consumer. I don't know where all those computers went, whether it was something that
Must be targeted or something.
I would hope they're specifically targeted computers for situations that are protected, but the involvement of the digital community in this, either knowingly or unknowingly, is very damaging to them.
That's right, yeah.
Because it ruins the brand.
Yeah, yeah. Again, learning from the Chinese government, because the Chinese government were also reported to be putting particular software into computers. This is to a large number of people, and then they can monitor all the activities on the computer. So again, we're talking about governments really not doing, not honoring these privacies and rights.
Well, it seems to me, Hong, that the Fourth Amendment protections of privacy have been pushed down in favor of the broad topic of national security. And I'm hopeful that what we're going to see is a very serious debate on this whole issue start up now, because the lawyers are impacted, business is impacted. Let me just give you an example. Let's suppose that you're the CEO of business in Singapore, and I'm a CEO of an American company, and we're competing for a contract, and there's a Japanese company also competing for the same contract. And so our prices are relatively close. And so you make the final decision. And all things being equal, I think this whole situation involving that we've just seen, involving the Mayor Brown Indonesian capture of information, says possibly to you as a CEO, wait a second, I'm not so sure I want to deal with the American company because I don't want my communications be swooped up in the NSA net. I'd rather go with the Japanese company. So what the impact of that on American business places them in a less competitive situation.
Oh, wow.
Very damaging.
That is. Okay, let's take our last short break. This is Hong Jiang at Asia in Review at ThinkTech Hawaii, and we've been speaking about NSA spying breaking international business. We'll be right back. I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha. We're back. We're live, coming to you from downtown Honolulu. This is Asia in Review, and we've been speaking with the international business lawyer David Day on the NSA spying. In a way that I'm kind of glad that the legal communities are swooped into this network, because now you guys can probably sue the national government and ask them to stop.
Well, that's one of you hit on a very valuable point, Hong, and that's one of the powerful side effects, if you will, of this recent disclosure, Snowden disclosure about the Indonesian Trade Ministry and the Mayor Brown law firm in Chicago, is that, okay, now that you've lit a fuse under the lawyers.
You get American lawyers up in arms, and
Let's
see
hope
what
that
happens.
Let's hope that happens.
So are you saying that you're not sure whether the legal communities, the lawyers, are going to see this as a huge problem and start to act? No, you're not sure yet?
Well, I'm sure they don't today.
Okay.
And the reason is this is very recent breaking news that's occurred in the last few days here. And so it's going to take some time for the legal community to really understand the ramifications of the discussion that you and I are having right now. But, what's going to ultimately happen, and can it be corrected? These are questions that, you and I can speculate about. I mean, we were talking right before the show about this interesting situation involving the legislature in the state of Maryland. And Maryland has a huge NSA processing center in the state of Maryland, right outside of Washington.
Right, that's right, yeah.
And so there's a bill proposed in the Maryland legislature that says to the state of Maryland, you will not supply electricity and water to the NSA facility, any NSA facility located in the state.
That's interesting. Let's starve them out.
Starve them out. We'll do the old medieval trick. Kind of like surround the capital, surround the castle. And so I don't think that's going to go anywhere.
Okay.
But it does indicate a level of concern. And then we have Senator Rand Paul, who's filed a lawsuit along with some other folks having to do with the breach of the Fourth Amendment. So maybe that'll work its way up through the courts.
Yeah.
But what does it actually mean for business? And the frightening thing about it is that I don't think the NSA thought through the ramifications of their dragnet, what this was going to mean, because you've got a damage to the U.S. brand, damage to U.S. law firms, a damage to the digital communications industry in the U.S.
That's right. Everybody's involved there.
And we almost would see a kind of a forced rollback of the way that you communicate with a client and you negotiate a deal to the old-fashioned face-to-face communications. And as you pointed out earlier, that might mean you got to put the cell phone on the table and take the battery out.
That's right. What's interesting is let's use the next few minutes to talk a little bit about the larger question of telecommunication and technology. We all know the technological improvements and changes have been happening very fast, affecting everybody's lives. So here we have NSA, supposedly watching out for security concerns, and you would probably, probably a lot of people wouldn't admit that there are more security concerns with the technology. And at the same time, everybody's living with this new technology of communication. So what do we do? Where are we? Where are we going to?
Well, if we continue on
question,
if we continue on the same trajectory, we're already moving past or through the concept of Brave New World, and this is a very disturbing development in terms of swooping up the attorney-client confidential communications of a major U.S. law firm, and so the challenge, I think, in the future is that there's going to have to be a major debate within the United States as to how much we can and should reform the NSA and scale back the size or the sweep of this dragnet, because otherwise the damage to the potential damage to American business, to American law firms, is incredible. And then the flip side is, within the American law firm or American lawyers, the obligation upon them to make reasonable efforts under the new ABA law.
Come back to the reasonable effort again.
What does that mean to protect the confidential information of clients from outsiders? So what is that really going to mean? What does that mean to me as a lawyer? Does that mean that all of my communications have to be through a server in Switzerland? Or does it means that I can't make electronic communications? I mean, you can't use the internet because it all can be decrypted. So I don't know where this is going to take us, but I do know that in the short term, while this debate is going on, that it poses an extraordinary burden upon the legal community to think about the issues of surveillance and spying in the communication with their own clients. Otherwise, you can't keep it confidential.
And on the flip side of that, I think you see technological reliance of everybody, and that how that reduces the face-to-face communication just on a daily basis of everybody. So maybe that's also it's also time to rethink about that impact of technology.
Sure, we have a whole generation of kids that have grown up on Facebook.
That's right.
And so
they wouldn't know how to communicate otherwise, probably.
That's right. And so maybe there's going to be a push for them to learn how to talk to somebody. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Dave, this is a great, fascinating topic. And we've been speaking with David Day, a leading international business lawyer, about the impact of NSA spying on international business. And thank you so much, David, for being here.
Great. Thank you so much, Hong.
This is Asia in Review, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you. Goodbye.